Well, welcome everybody to Office IFE for today. We've got quite a bit of info to go through. Our topic this month has been on defensive driving. For our presentation today, Heather Schwarzy is going to go through the information with us. So I'll introduce Heather and then hand the floor off to her. Heather is one of our EHS professionals that is our EHS lead out at Intel, the Intel campus. So with that, I will hand the floor over to Heather and then I'll pull up the presentation.
Today, we're going to go over defensive driving as Jolene has stated. So we'll just jump right into the slides and I'll ad lib as we go through it. So defensive driving is a combination of preparation, hazard, perception, speed, and space management and attitude. Regardless of the vehicle you drive, car, pickup truck, utility van, passenger van, or straight truck, the principles of defensive driving remain the same. There's a lot of risk when you get behind the wheel of a company vehicle. Your life and lives of coworkers in your vehicle, your company vehicle, and materials or cargo, and your company's reputation. And I know throughout the company that we do put a lot of people behind company vehicles, and at any given time of day, they could be switched from a commuter car to a flatbed truck. So we need to, as a company, make sure that everybody that is driving for us makes sure to follow all of these procedures that we have in place and that we're going to talk about today. Next slide. So the National Highway Safety Administration defines a defensive driver. Oops.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Defines a defensive driving as preventing accidents by trying to anticipate hazardous situations and adjusting behaviors or behaviors to compensate. Roughly 40,000 people lose their lives in motor vehicle crashes each year, which is a pretty scary statistic in my safety book. Vehicle crashes are the #1 cause of on-the-job fatalities, all of which I think if we do our due diligence and teach our members how to drive defensively, we can prevent that. So next slide, preparation. Plan the safest and shortest route. Where are you going? What route you'll take? Where you plan to stop along the way? What time you'll get there? And as we all know, these plans can change, and we have to make sure that our crew members that are driving and delivering for us understand that those plans change, and attitude during those times of change is greatly appreciated when people have a good attitude. I know we all work with a lot of crew members out there that plans change all day, every day. Some frustration gets heard and vented, and it's the same thing with our drivers. They get frustrated when things change. So we want to make sure that they're programming their GPS if they don't know where they're going before they leave. Make any necessary phone calls before you depart. Check weather, traffic, and road construction reports. Alert coworkers and friends that you'll be unavailable. So, and then after GPS is set on your phones, we need to ensure that our drivers are putting their phone on safe mode so they aren't tempted to answer their phones as they drive. Next slide. Vehicle inspection, very, very, very important prior to leaving. Blown tires can cause havoc when you're driving with a load. So you perform a vehicle walk around. Don't assume everything is in good working condition with the vehicle you are about to drive. This picture also reminds me of being at home, and I hope everybody has seen the picture of a person checking their own personal vehicle with a child hiding under their cars in their neighborhood. Very, very important to take this all home as well, so we don't hurt anybody backing out of our own driveways. So make sure that the tires are properly inflated. Do they have adequate tread? Do they have any cuts or gouges in the sidewalls? And a very important thing around any construction site is look at the ground around you and make sure there's no nails or screws that will hurt your tires. Lights and reflectors. Do the low and high beams work? Do the turn signal lights work? Do the brake lights work? Do the flashers work? Do the interior lights work? And I don't know if it's anybody else's pet peeve, but I hate following behind a car that I can tell that their brake lights don't work. I always change lanes and make sure that my crew members that are driving understand that it is not safe to follow behind somebody that their lights are not properly working. Windows and mirrors. Are the windows and mirrors clean and free of ice and debris? Are there cracks in the windshield or side windows? Does the rear view mirror provide you with unobstructed views? Are the windshield wipers in good working condition? And this slide just reminds me of actually a gentleman that was leaving a job site. It was his last day. He had his tools in the back seat of his vehicle. He applied the brakes and his tools slid and hit him in the back of the head. So for some reason, that rear view mirror always reminds me of that. Very important to have things tied down even inside of a car so it can't fly up and hit you. Next slide. Seat is very, very important for you to adequately position your seat. And I'm sure there are some of us on this call that are married and drive our spouse's vehicle. And sometimes you don't like to adjust that seat because you might irritate your spouse or your other loved one that you may be driving their car. But it's very important to adjust your seat. Is the seat positioned so your outstretched hands rest comfortably on the top of the wheel? Can your feet easily reach and operate the pedals? Does your seat position allow you to see clearly out the front and side windows? Does your seat position and mirror adjustment allow you to just see the outside edge of the vehicle on the inside edge or of the outside mirrors? So again, make sure that you're adjusting that seat. They can always adjust it back. So
I wanted to add one more thing here too. One thing, a lot of folks might carry their wallets in their back pocket too. So it's a really good rule of thumb to take that out, put it on the dash or in the center console while you're driving too, because that can also adjust how comfortably you're sitting and kind of keep you centered, and from an ergonomic perspective, something to key in on as well.
Very good point. I'll write that down. All right, so your engine and powertrain. Does everything sound right? Does the shifter move freely? Does the accelerator pedal work properly? And then again, make sure that seat is adjusted so you can push on that accelerator and the brakes. Does the brake pedal slow the vehicle firmly? Other things to look for. Does the horn work? Does the parking brake work? Are there any pools of fluids underneath the vehicle? Are the fluid levels adequate? Brake, transmission, and especially right now, the coolant and the washer solutions. Does the battery have a full charge? Hazard perception. Are the skills that allow you to see what is happening and help you anticipate what might happen? Scan your mirrors and gauges about every 5 seconds. Continuously scan 12 to 15 seconds ahead of your vehicle. 1 block in the city or a quarter of a mile on the highway. Hazards to be aware of: road conditions, other motorists, pedestrians, road debris, animals, construction zones, crash scenes, and I can't believe we live in Oregon and it does not list bicyclists. There are tons of bicyclists out there. I have several people that bicycle up to 13 miles a day here to Intel to come to work. And yes, they're even doing it in the heat. So just make sure that you're looking for all of those things, anything unexpected. If you don't expect it, it can pop out in front of you. Speed and space management. Excessive speed and following too closely. I don't know how many of us here in this meeting have rode with somebody that is following too closely to a vehicle in front of you. I personally do not like riding with them. You need time and space to respond appropriately and safely based on the actions of others. Your safety cushion gives you a margin of space for responding to trouble. Passenger cars, you need 2 to 3 second safety cushion. Larger vehicles, 5 to 6 second safety cushion. Perception distance plus reaction distance plus effective braking distance. That is your total stopping distance. Next would be your attitude. Attitudes can be just as important as your driving skills. That being said, we cannot anticipate other drivers' attitudes. You always have control over your attitude and how you drive. Driving aggressively or getting upset with other motorists won't get you to your destination any sooner. This also applies not only to driving out on roadways, but also in parking structures. I know a lot of us deal with going to and from work and parking in parking structures. And those attitudes are amplified when you're trying to get to your job and there's 700 other vehicles in the same parking structure trying to get to the same job site. So attitude is very, very important. Stay calm and constantly scan to offset the poor driving habits of others. And fatigue and drowsiness can also affect your attitude while driving. Plan for the what ifs. To stay in control, play what if in your mind at all times. Ask yourself, what if that truck pulls out in front of me? What if that car coming up on the left cuts into my lane? What if the guy running down the sidewalk darts out in front of me? What if that bicyclist signals to turn right and he actually turns left? What if that person that's walking with earphones in and playing on their phone doesn't pay attention to the crosswalk and walks out in front of you? These are things that you have to plan the what ifs. When the what if happens, how do you react? Ask yourself, do I have an escape route? Is there room to maneuver? Is there enough space behind me to stop in time without getting rear-ended? Next slide, please. According to the National Highway Safety, 80% of all crashes and 65% of near crashes involve some form of driver distractions. 3 major types of driving distractions. Visual, when you take your eyes off the road. We've all done it. We've all seen something and we've had to look twice at it. Make sure that you're aware that you're driving and you're not being distracted. Physical, when you take your hands off the wheels. Perhaps you were eating, you stopped by a fast food restaurant in between job sites and you're physically eating while you drive. That is a distraction. Mentally, when your brain is not engaged in the task of driving. That happens when your phone rings. So again, please put your phone on the safe mode. Texting while driving is one of the deadliest distractions because it involves all 3 types of distractions. So texting is visually, physically, and mentally distracting. So please, no texting and driving. The principal actions that cause distracted driving and lead to vehicle crashes are reaching for an object, looking at an object, reading, and unfortunately, I hate this next one, applying makeup, and cell phone use. Also, changing the radio. It distracts you. Your hands are off the wheels. You're looking at the radio. So please make sure that you're paying attention at all times while driving. And to avoid distractions, always stay focused on your driving and follow these tips. Make and finish all phone calls before you start driving. And again, there are a lot of drivers for EC out there. And if we could encourage anybody that is out there delivering and driving for us, pull over. If you get lost, before you get distracted from driving, pull over to make that phone call. It happens out there. We have people here at Intel get lost as they're driving on site. It's a mandatory, you must pull over before making that call and saying, hey, I'm lost, I need directions. If your phone rings while you're driving, let voicemail pick up the call. If you absolutely must answer your phone, please utilize your hands-free device or safely pull over to the side of the road and take the call. So weather hazards are next. And in Oregon, of course, we have every type of weather. So fog, drive with your headlights on low beams, reduce your speed, watch your speedometer and verify your visibility distance. Don't assume other drivers have their lights on. Very, very important. Not everybody knows to turn their lights on. Use wipers and defrosters as necessary. Use the right edge of the road or painted road markings as a guide. And remember, not everybody out there on the road has good eyesight. There are people out there driving in fog, in heavy rain, in the sunlight that don't necessarily have prescription glasses that they need to be wearing. And so when they are in foggy weather, rain, or the dark, their driving becomes more hazardous to all of us. So in the rain, avoid hydroplaning by keeping your tires inflated correctly and make sure they have adequate tread. Slow down when roads are wet and avoid puddles. Drive in the tire tracks left by the vehicles in front of you. Prevent skids by driving slowly and increasing your following distance, especially on curves. If your vehicle has anti-lock brakes and you need to slow down, hold steady pressure on the brakes pedal and steer where you want the vehicle to go. If your vehicle does not have anti-lock brakes and braking puts you into a skid, stay off the brake pedal until you regain control, then pump the brakes to slow the vehicle. Sunlight. Sunlight is a huge hazard. I don't know anybody on this call that isn't experiencing sunlight this week. In the early morning hours and late afternoon, the direct sunlight can become a hazard to driving. Use sunshades to limit the brightness. Have sunglasses or dark safety glasses available to help shield your eyes from the sun. Be especially careful on bridges, overpasses, and curves. Increase your following distance between you and the car in front of you to ensure a good reaction time should you need to brake suddenly. And the infamous snow and ice that cripples Oregon every winter. Don't assume your vehicle can handle snow and heavy ice conditions. Turn on your headlights on low beam. Use low gears to maintain traction. Use the defroster and wipers. Don't use cruise control or override on icy roads. Be especially careful on bridges, overpasses, and curves. Decrease your speed and increase your following distance by 4 to 10 times. Avoid sudden braking, acceleration, steering. Skids with anti-lock brakes, hold light, steady pressure on the brakes. Without anti-lock brakes, ease off the brakes until the wheels start rolling again, and then gently reapply. When driving in snowy and icy conditions, carry a winter survival kit that includes shovel, bag of sand, traction, gloves, hat, snack bars, flashlight, and water. And apparently right now we need to talk about driving with water in our vehicles and making sure that our vehicles have, number one, enough gas to get us home, a working air conditioner, and make sure that your car has coolant. So we're going to have to re-up these slides, Jolene, and put in a heat hazard slide. And above all, we need to assess our crews and our people that we're putting behind the wheels to make sure there are people out here that are that have never driven in the different hazardous weathers such as snow and ice. We want to ask ourselves before we put our crew members in those positions, is this crew member capable of driving in these conditions? If they do reach out to you as a supervisor and they say, hey, I'm uncomfortable driving this, we need to find somebody else to do that task on that day. So key takeaways: driving defensively means being prepared for anything that might occur on the road. Have a good trip plan and thoroughly inspect your vehicle before you head out. Use constant visual scanning. Maintain a proper safety cushion. Make a plan for escape should you need it. Take control of your own safety and drive defensively. And as well as being physically fit for your work that day, if any of your work requires driving or one of our crew members, please also make sure that they're mentally fit for the day and their heads in the game prior to putting them behind a vehicle. With that being said, back to you, Jolene.
All right. Thank you, Heather. I think your last comment really is one that we probably should develop another slide for this training as well, because right now mental health and just making sure people are of good sound mind for some high risk activities. I mean, I include defensive driving with that just because there's a lot of traffic out there in all of our regions that we experience, and not everybody is as we would classify a good driver.
Yep.
And so trying to make sure that you're staying in check with yourself and able to apply some of these tips that we've gone through today with you, just to make sure that you're a defensive driver, and applying some of these is really critical. So I appreciate, Heather, going through those slides and hoping that everybody was able to learn a few things, and we'll take some of those and apply it to your everyday driving habits. So, all right. We also have today a little quiz associated with what we just went through. So, wake you guys up a little bit, ask for some participation. Believe folks can unmute themselves, but we'll go through each of these questions, and I just ask for, if you're going to respond, just unmute yourself, or you can utilize the chat feature as well. So we'll go through the first question here, but driving defensively is going to include which of the following. So this means either A, always being in control of your vehicle, B, knowing what other drivers are doing, or C, being prepared for anything that might occur on the road, or it could include all of them. So I'm seeing a lot of D's, which is correct. So, whoo, awesome. Thanks, guys and gals. So the second question here, a sound trip plan includes A, where you're going, B, where you're going and when you'll arrive, C, where you're going, the route you'll take and when you'll arrive, or D, where you're going, the route you'll take, where you're stopping, and when you'll arrive. So again, I'm seeing a lot of D's. So thank you, everybody. All right. Number 3, on average, how many people die in motor vehicle crashes each year? So this was on one of the earlier slides. And again, you guys were all paying attention. So C, 40,000 is the correct answer for number 3. Again, a very high statistic, one that is not comforting by any means. Number 4, total stopping distance depends on what 3 factors? So we have A, perception distance, reaction distance, and braking distance. B, perception distance, operating distance, and braking distance. C, prevention distance, operation distance, and braking distance. or D, prevention distance, reaction distance, and braking distance? So a lot of A's. Anybody else have anything else? All right. Very good. A. All right. Number 5. Which of the following would not be considered a major type of driving distraction? So we have mental distraction, auditory distraction, physical distraction, or visual distraction. So again, everybody's on par. So B, auditory distraction. So again, you know, we're able to listen to things without minimal distraction, but when we start looking at some of the mental, physical, and visual, that's where those will definitely affect our ability to pay attention. All right, number 6, if a vehicle moves into your safety cushion in front of your vehicle, you should do which of the following? So slow down, readjust your following distance, speed up, pass the vehicle at the next safest opportunity, hit the brakes until you regain a 2 to 3 car length safety cushion, or speed up to close the gap until the vehicle changes lanes. So seeing a lot of safe driving habits here. So A, slow down and readjust your following distance. So yes, you guys all chose safe driving habit there. So good. And number 7, when looking for potential hazards while driving, you should visually scan 8 to 10 seconds ahead of your vehicle, 1 block in the city and a quarter mile of the highway ahead of your vehicle, 10 to 12 seconds ahead, or 2 blocks in the city and a half mile on the highway. So again, you guys are all correct. B, 1 block in the city and a quarter mile on the highway ahead of your vehicle. All right, for number 8, if you feel ice forming on the front of your outside mirror, what could that trigger? So A, it will soon form on your windshield. B, it'll form on the road within 10 minutes. C, it may also be forming on the road, or D, pull over and scrape it off. So on this one, this could be an early indicator that it's going to be forming on the road. So C would be your correct answer here. All other things potentially could follow suit, but it's a good cue that your road conditions could become slick here pretty quick. So something to be aware of. And number 9, which of the following is considered a triple threat distraction? So lots of people already commenting on A. So texting while driving, that was that triple threat. It hits all cylinders as far as the distraction piece. So definitely one to avoid. And then number 10, the leading cause of vehicle crashes are, and again, you all are hitting it with a distracted driving and excessive speed. So those 2 definitely are the leading causes for vehicle crashes. So well done.